Great, awesome. So if you oh, thank you for M. Colligan for letting me know that you're able to hear us now. That's perfect. You didn't miss much. It was a little bit more about me there, so I won't repeat that part of it. But I'm glad that we're able to get the audio to work now, and we're in this webinar. So this is where kind of the meat starts. And the first question to ask is, who are advocates, and how and why do we need them? Now, here's some great quotes from people that I've collected essentially over time, and I really like this one from David Berkowitz, which who says, someone who needs no incentive to tell others about you. If you're a really popular brand, if you're like an Apple, if you will, there's people talking about you on a very regular basis. But if you're not a very popular brand, how do you get people to start talking a little bit more about you without incentives? And when you get people to talk about you without incentives, that's when you've got true advocates, available, for you to cultivate and nurture, if you will. Forrester says a person who not only buys from the brand, but will also protect, promote, and help it. So it's not just a loyal customer. It's not just a purchaser. It's a person that will help you promote it. And again, ideally without an incentive, if you will. And these advocates may even not necessarily be a customer. They may have been in touch with your brand in some other way, potentially where they've had a positive experience, but they may not even be a customer. And a lot of times we talk about advocacy even before that first purchase, in how you can engage with them, if you will, from that perspective. So, we know that advocate marketing really works. I mean, here's some more statistics that we've collected, but 92% of consumers actually trust brand advocates. As a brand, we can talk all about ourselves as much as we want, but really, what matters is when other people mention it, especially when people that you trust mention about the brand. It's a lot more trustworthy. And word of mouth is about between 20 to 50% of all purchasing decisions. I mean, if you look at it in terms of what you buy and how many times you've actually gotten an opinion from other people before that purchase, you'll probably agree with me that that's true. And these advocates also convert at a much higher rate than usual. We see between 4 to 10x higher rate than others, essentially. So these advocates essentially are great sort of additions to business. Now, we also highly believe that people want to be advocates. They want to be given the capabilities to engage with the company and be able to become an advocate for a brand that they really love. A lot of times what we don't do, and you'll see over the next few slides in terms of ideas when we get into it, is us as brands and companies do not do a great job at actually cultivating that advocate marketing part of it. And hopefully some of the ideas you see in the rest of the slides will give you ways to do that better from other brands that are doing that well. Now, one of the key pieces with the advent of social overall is advocates now are already talking about you. So if you look at the different social networks, and I'm sure as brands you're now starting to really sort of start to be part of that conversation, but advocates are talking about you, whether it's something great that they had it as an experience, or if they didn't, or if they wanted to communicate with you, they're talking about you, they're hashtagging you, they're tweeting to you. It's the part that we all need to realize is we need to become part of that conversation. So hopefully the next few slides will give you some idea of how you can become part of that whole conversation. And like I said before, advocacy is not just about that repeat purchase and then getting sort of loyal customers to become advocates. It's about the whole customer journey. It actually starts from the first touch point that you have with that brand, and from that touch point onwards, kind of cultivating that advocacy piece all the way to their first purchase, to their multiple purchases, to them becoming real advocates and continuing to stay advocates, essentially. So it's all about the entire customer journey. It's not just about getting some people to share and then become advocates, essentially. Now, a little bit sort of background experience. Back in the day, I used to run e-commerce for a company called Teleflora. Floral company, pretty large customer base on the consumer portion, which is teleflora.com, as well as the B2B portion, where we operate about 10,000 florist websites. And we tried to do a lot of this, very grassroots at the time. So, we wanted to figure out how we could sort of cultivate brand loyalty and brand advocacy, especially for us because there were a lot of peaks and valleys in our business. So we would have a really high peak at Valentine's Day. We would have a really high peak during Mother's Day. And what we wanted to do is at that point in time, we would release new products. And we wanted to have brand advocates tell other people about those new products that we were releasing, so it could essentially get more reviews, so we could get more content about them, so we could get more, obviously, more purchases about them. And so we started a lot of grassroots sort of customer loyalty techniques and advocacy techniques to allow our top customers to spread sort of the word for us. And along that process came up with a lot of sort of keywords that we wanted to sort of do with our brand advocates to ensure that they become sort of true advocates, and B, stay advocates from a long-term perspective. So we wanted to make sure that they have a very positive experience. That's extremely important, like I said, from not only for repeat customers, but also from the first touch point they have with your brand. But also wanted to maintain authenticity. We wanted to make sure that we were communicating authentically with our customers in terms of what our products were. We wanted to empower them. We wanted to give them the tools to be successful in actually become advocates. So we launched a very kludgy referral program at the time to do that. We also wanted to make sure that this was sustainable. It wasn't just that we did this for Valentine's Day and then we lost them, and so on. So we wanted to create ways that was very sustainable in the long run. We wanted to make sure that word of mouth was really trackable overall, essentially. So providing that trust and recommendations and bringing that online through a referral mechanism reliably by cultivating sort of brand advocates. We came up with all these different verbs that wanted to ensure that we did within our experience. So hopefully in the next few slides I'll tell you some other brands that have done this very effectively at a much larger scale, if you will, from that perspective. So now let's kind of get a little deeper into the aspect of how we really do that. Let me give you some real concrete examples and dive into the 12 points that really convert customers into advocates. The first sort of key piece is to ensure that we have a very customer-centric attitude. 70% of buying experiences are based on how customers really feel they're being treated, essentially. And in 2015, one of the surveys that was done by a renowned sort of agency said that it actually takes about 12 positive experiences to make up for one negative experience overall, essentially. So one of the brands that does that really well, that we feel, is Trader Joe's, and you can see essentially where their advocates are talking about them on social overall. Here's some real Twitter examples where advocates have written some great stuff about their experiences when walking into Trader Joe's. This first one, when a cashier at Trader Joe's gives you a spoon to eat the cookie, butter on the way home, hash win. So again, it's about taking and giving your advocates the ability to kind of talk about their great experiences, but also maintaining a very customer-centric approach and ensuring that customers are happy at each touch point within the experience, if you will. Now, it's also very important in this process to own up to your mistakes. This is an example of Lilly Pulitzer, where they missed something and they essentially replied back to their customer base, and another example of Target, where they had a challenge with their site and they replied back to their audience as well. So again, now communicating to customers, saying and accepting if you were wrong in certain ways, and making it a little bit more personal from that perspective. Is a great way to enhance customer centrism. One of the traditional ways that we've all been doing this on e-commerce sites specifically is adding ratings and reviews. Ratings and reviews are great ways to ask for feedback, ask people for what they felt the real experiences were, and more importantly, now take that data that you have and not only support your merchandising decisions so you can really understand how people are using your products, but also help your existing customer base understand, or your new customer base get a view of how these products are being used by your existing customer base overall. And so very traditional way, things that we've always been kind of using overall to further, customer centrism, if you will. Now, to the second point, beyond being customer centric, customers want to be, treated really well. So, here's an example of Delta, where for their top customers, they actually, did, set up private jets. Just an example of how they took their top customers and offered them sort of private plane rides, essentially, if you will. Now, one of the things when we think about, real customer-centric attitudes and treating customers like their royalty, the brand that comes to mind right away is Zappos. And Tony Hsieh, the founder and CEO of Zappos, says that their philosophy is delivering happiness to customers and to employees. People don't remember what you did or what you said, but they always remember how you made them feel. And so investing in the customer sort of service attitude of ensuring that you're doing that is extremely, extremely important. Now, with Zappos specifically, there's a story about a woman who arrived in Las Vegas on a trip, and she found that she had forgotten her favorite shoes. Las Vegas obviously is Zappos' town, so she tried ordering them from Zappos, but they weren't available. So after calling customer service to try to find a solution, she was really surprised to find a Zappos employee that actually went to a rival shoe store, purchased those shoes, and delivered them to her hotel at no charge. And that's really treating customers like royalty. So that's a real case example of how Zappos delivered a really great customer experience, for that customer specifically, if you will. Another sort of great experience of personalizing essentially the experience of customers is surprising them with birthday offers. We kind of all do that a little bit there, but again, remembering that personalized experience where someone remembers that it's your birthday and potentially an offer tied to it would always be great, if you will, from that perspective. It seems like the screen is paused. I want to make sure that it's not paused here, so I'm going to make sure that I can bring it back. Give me 1 second there. Okay, there we go. We're back again. So in terms of another example of a site that does this really well by personalizing their experience is Dropbox. I'm sure we all use Dropbox, but essentially personalizing the experience on Dropbox where a customer is treated personally, where essentially they have the ability to kind of get a personal experience while using Dropbox is super important there. Seems like we're having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to go back to my screen here. There we go. Okay. Now, the next sort of way, which is our point number 4, is to host contests that reward creativity. We know that contests create about 5.5 times more engagement than just simple social media posts. And if you do the right type of contest, you get shoppers and fans and maybe even people that have never bought from you to advertise on your behalf. And so this is where it really pays to be creative. Doing a simple sweepstakes is, sure, it's helpful, but it's nothing new, right? It's been done before, essentially. So you should launch contests that incentivize customers to create content and they themselves promote. So the fashion boutique Bonadrag does this really well. And with their yearly holiday contest in which they ask their audience to make collages of their wish lists. Another way to do this is to start with an Instagram photo contest. You may have come across this a few times where you ask your audience to submit a certain type of photo and hashtag it within their own Instagram accounts, and then sort of fetching those hashtag pictures and essentially curating those pictures and allowing people to participate in those contests is another great way to reward creativity. So again, the idea here is to host contests, but not just plain simple contests around just sweepstakes, but enhancing those contests with real-life behaviors, potentially using real users and content to drive behavior there. The other sort of way is to create a way where your customers can really have a trackable way to earn rewards through referring friends. And that is through a refer a friend program. This is an example of Vitacost that does this really well, where they allow people to refer their friends. And in this case, when you refer a friend and your friend buys, then you both get $10 off. And we see that those types of referral programs have an extremely high engagement rate. And the friends that get referred back have about a 37% better conversion rate, and also are about 18% more loyal in general, if you will, from that perspective. So great way to create a trackable referral program. Your customers may be referring their friends already, but they may not be getting a reward for it, or you might not be able to track it well. So creating a streamlined program around it is always an effective way to achieve that. Now, one of the things that you probably, you've probably figured out by now is, people don't want to be blatantly advertised to. So when you create content that is very ad focused, it actually turns people off. The right way to create content is ideally to entertain or educate your audience. And that actually builds more brand advocacy. Essentially, the customers grow to trust you. They think fondly about your business. So this is an example of a brand that does this really well, Reformation. They're an environmentally conscious clothing company with a huge social presence. And part of the reason for that is Reformation's marketing team tries to educate their audience about sustainability, and not just about fashion, but in other ways too. They put educational material on their website, on their social channels, and even on their packaging and their clothing tags, essentially. So this is a great example of education content becoming a great way to nurture advocates, essentially. And their audience takes it really well, and they really appreciate it. So here's what you can see, an example of a customer essentially appreciating the aspect of how this brand educates their customers, if you will. Now, one great way to educate your audience beyond the reviews and ratings example that I mentioned before is essentially having a Q&A system. The ability, especially if you have products that are not as easy to really understand in terms of how they're going to be used, essentially having a Q&A system where not only customers can ask questions about specific products, can get guidance from you directly as an expert, but also can get guidance from past purchasers through creating a true social Q&A system is a great way to do that. So one of our customers, Traeger Grills, does this really well by allowing essentially customers to ask questions about that grill purchase. It's a pretty big purchase, essentially. So ask questions about that purchase, and then get answers not only from the experts, essentially the company itself, but also other customers, if you will, that have purchased that product, if you will. Now, one of the sort of pieces that's really important, again, as an idea there, is is to be very transparent in your approach of communicating with customers. Domino's Pizza is really well known for that 30-minute timeline window when you order your pizza, and then you can kind of see the progress of your pizza being made, essentially in Domino's, all the way from your order being placed to prep work to baking to quality checks to delivery, essentially. So it's a great sort of way to really be transparent in your approach and manage a customer's expectations, and frankly even entertain them a little bit. Gets customers really excited about it, and make them refresh your page and be engaged during the process of waiting for that pizza to come over to your house. And so it's a great way to entertain them, great way to inform them, and great way to engage them essentially overall as well. So that's a great way to sort of communicate with customers. Now, here's another brand that does this really well, Everlane. And Everlane is a company that truly enhances transparency. They not only provide information about their products, they provide information about their supply chains and their pricing models and their transportation costs. So everything in their entire process is completely transparent to their end customers, from base to shipping, essentially. And their customers really love this because they feel that they're getting a fair deal. They're getting essentially a transparent opinion from a company where they're essentially they can trust them and respect them for doing that. So you can see here some customers are actually sharing their excitement about Everlane's transparent pricing philosophy, essentially, if you will. Now, we've talked a lot about different ways in engaging your customers through referral programs and through sort of giving them content and ways to engage with you, to being very transparent, to being customer centric. One of the things that we all know about is a company called Tom's, and cause-based marketing is a great way to really cultivate advocates without truly providing an incentive that's a like a dollar incentive. So we showed a referral program before that was very direct incentive focused. This is an indirect incentive, based on cause marketing essentially. So Tom's, as I think we've all heard about this, but has donated about 50 million pairs of shoes to children in need, and they donate they donate one pair for every pair purchased, and that they've grown as a brand over the years by doing this significantly, over from the time they started, and then since their founding in 2006, and have done this from that very day. So again, cause-based marketing is a great way to enhance and reward brand advocacy, if you will, from that perspective. Now, one of the other examples of another brand, that didn't really give a cause-based, essentially incentive, but created a campaign around it. This is AT&T. And AT&T created a campaign around an emotional video that focused on how texting while driving can change the life of a driver or others. It was a campaign called "It Can Wait: The Power of a Movement," and essentially was all about how you shouldn't text while you're driving, and anyone you're communicating with while driving via text can definitely wait. And it was so powerful that it gained the support of over 1,500 other organizations, including the likes of Goodyear and Walt Disney, if you will. So again, a great cause, essentially furthering their brand, if you will, and very appropriate to what they're doing, essentially phones, and if you will. And along with that, the campaign became a very recognizable slogan. In addition to the support of the 1,500 organizations that we talked about, also got about 7.8 million pledges, if you will, so far, to not to text and drive. So a great way to kind of have a cause essentially drive your brand, essentially, is an example here, in this case, AT&T. Now, our next idea focuses on collaborations that essentially create a sense of community overall. So this is an example of Lay's, a brand that we all love and eat, I'm sure. And for the past 3 years, Lay's potato chips has been doing a contest called "Do Us a Flavor." Now, in this contest, customers come up with their ideal combination for the next flavor of Lay's. And once thousands of these flavors are submitted, Lay's chooses their 3 finalists and allows the public to vote on the best ones. And the winner gets $1 million. So it's a great prize, essentially, where it gets a lot of participation there. And the campaign generates, tons of word of mouth every year, essentially. And more importantly, when consumers play an important role in the marketing and development of that new product, they feel valued, they feel part of the community, they feel that they've collaborated in the sense of creating that product, and essentially sort of generates an additional sort of brand value from that perspective. Now, even if you don't host a creative competition like Lay's and don't want to give $1 million away, again, that's a big brand example. You can still do that by having your customers collaborate on content marketing by asking them to share photos of your products with a specific hashtag. We talked a little bit about this before with the contest, where I kind of mentioned where you can run contests around asking people to hashtag your products and them wearing their products if it's apparel, or using your products essentially. But allowing those customers to now share that content, now they become part of your brand because they've actually contributed to your brand. Now they're more associated and attached to your brand, and they can also sort of be feel important when their content is actually shared with other customers. So that's another great way of doing this without a big budget sort of campaign like Lay's before. So another way to sort of engage is by showing off your team. ASUS does this really well in this case, where they can essentially they engage by having their stylists show off on their website, if you will. They have their stylists own their own social accounts, in which they post their outfits and pictures of their lives. So again, you can meet the team and show off your team, and that's another great way of allowing collaboration within the company itself and furthering sort of that thought and cultivating brand advocates by people that follow the team itself, if you will. And just as an example, by leveraging these employee advocates like this one, the specific one has 114,000 Instagram followers, and so again, a great way to kind of get and educate the audience by using brand advocates that are your own employees essentially. Now, our next idea is about creating a very, very seamless experience across all channels for customers. Now, customers become really frustrated when they don't get a seamless experience across all channels, whether it's mobile, whether it's in store, whether it's online, essentially. And especially if you're running a rewards program where customers can earn rewards for making purchases or participating in social channels, if you will. If you have some sort of a loyalty program, it's highly important to ensure that all different channels have exactly the same experience. So this is a customer of ours, Olympus Cameras, that powers a loyalty program where not only can you make a purchase, and get rewarded for purchases online, but also get rewarded for other social actions and other actions, if you will. But that so goes across all different channels. So you can do that on your desktop, on your mobile device. You can even walk into a store, an authorized retailer store, and buy that, and also redeem your rewards in a store itself. So creating an omni-channel experience across all channels in your own stores, in your retailer stores, on your mobile device, through email, through desktop, if you will. Creating a seamless experience is a great way to ensure that customers have a great sort of experience with your brand, thereby cultivating advocacy, if you will. Now, kind of going further within the loyalty program, essentially, this is a great example of Dr. Brandt, who ties in advocacy to loyalty specifically. So not only are they rewarding their purchases, if you will, where you get X number of points per dollar spent, you also get rewarded for additional actions that are social actions, like following them on Twitter or Pinterest, or sharing, essentially, or referring friends, and as an example before, kind of bringing that all together, or even sort of specific side actions that they want to further, like subscribing to their newsletter or writing a review, if you will, from that perspective. So again, using loyalty programs to boost sort of that engagement, mixing loyalty with advocacy techniques, essentially, is a great way to kind of further both customer loyalty, where people can get their rewards earlier and have the opportunity to come back and buy again, if you will, but also kind of having a single channel to reward customers or loyalists, if you will, from that perspective, through not only becoming loyal customers, but also becoming advocates, if you will. So again, these are some examples here of customers where where they're sharing, and they've got some incentives to do so, and they're being rewarded for that. So to bring all these different points together, I hope you have got a good number of ideas to use within your own brands, whether it be immediate ideas on your site through launching referral programs or tying those into loyalty, or using sort of Instagram hashtag techniques or running contests, or if you're a big brand, kind of getting some big brand ideas of successes that other brands have seen, if you will, through cause marketing and the like, if you will. Overall, the different techniques that we shared, here's some real statistics. So visual commerce, which is the hashtag piece that I mentioned, it tends to increase conversion rate by 5 to 7%. So if you actually hashtag pictures and allow consumers to see those pictures on product pages, for example, it results in a 5 to 7% conversion lift from PDP to checkout. If you have user-generated content, content like reviews and Q&A, that generates about an 18% revenue lift by consumers looking at that content and then sort of making purchases better. Referral programs are a great way for customer acquisition. Essentially, we talked about how the referrers end up converting at a much higher rate, if you will, than the regular audience, if you will. And then lastly, sort of tying in from a traditional, or switching from a traditional loyalty program to a advocate loyalty program, where advocacy techniques are tied into the loyalty program, increases the revenue significantly again, and also increases the membership base, because now there's more people participating in the program, not only just by making purchases, but between multiple touch points with your brand, if you will. So some real numbers. Hopefully, they're helpful in your business case analysis, if you will.
Thanks so much, Al. Since I didn't get a chance to introduce myself with the audio broken before, I'm Eliza. I'm a marketing associate here. And so now we're going to have Al answer some questions. As a reminder, you can still submit questions. It currently looks like we have 3 to answer. So our first question is about point 11, creating a seamless experience. What are some other ways in which marketers can make their program seamless? Especially for a loyalty program, how do we merge the online and offline experience?
I think from a loyalty program perspective, if I take that part first, the important part is, traditional loyalty programs back in the day that we all remember, the airline-based loyalty programs, were all about kind of making that purchase from that first purchase to that next purchase, if you will. But as with the advent of social channels, the multi-channel aspect of touch points has become very important, and rewarding them not only for their behavior through purchases, but their behavior with other sort of pieces, if you will, is also very important. So that's sort of the advocacy piece that I talked about, again, kind of reiterating what I mentioned before, and cultivating the loyalists, if you will, by giving them more ways to earn is a great way to earn, brand loyalty. The other part of the omni-channel aspect, I think we've all been sort of talking about this as retailers for a long time, where we want to ensure that that customers have a very, very seamless experience no matter where they're touching your brand. So when they walk into a store and check in using Foursquare, or they go to your site and log in using Facebook, they're the same customer and should be treated the same way. So by having that customer identity, we didn't talk about that today much, but by having the social identity tied into the loyalty program as well as tied into their experience, and by recognizing them as the same customer that actually bought online and then ended up buying in store, you can essentially build a truly seamless experience for customers, if you will.
Great. Our second question is, you mentioned user-generated content several times. What are the best practices for marketing with content that shoppers create?
Yeah, so user-generated content is something that has been around for a while now. The traditional, reviews and ratings pieces, and then customer stories and testimonials, as well as Q&A that I mentioned as examples, have been around for a while. What's really changed, I believe, in that aspect is the availability of that information on our fingertips now, where people are actually expressing their opinions through social channels, either through pictures like Instagram and Pinterest, or through text, by tweeting and that sort of it. And so by bringing that user-generated content, in real time, curating that content and making that available is the next level of marketing, if you will. So the best practices, I would say, is traditional reviews and ratings. Sure, that's something you need to have, and if you don't, then I'm sure you've thought about why you don't want to have that. But the new age form of user-generated content, which is people, talking about you or your products on Twitter or hashtagging pictures on Instagram, bringing that in real time to help customers or new prospects make the decision about your products is the new real way to enhance UGC and thereby sort of advocacy.
And our third question is, you covered quite a few different tactics and software solutions. What are your recommendations for integrating these solutions with each other beyond tying loyalty with advocacy?
That's a good question. It's a very broad question overall because, as retailers, I've been on the other side of the table, and it would be great if my e-commerce platform and my POS system and all my other channels were operated through a single system. But the reality of life is they're all unique, independent systems. And so from a customer-oriented perspective, one of the things I always like to say is the lines are created by vendors, not by by consumers. So customers, or consumers expect a holistic experience no matter where they're touching your brand overall. And so tying these all together essentially is highly important. Now, how do you do that, especially when they're using, they're browsing on their desktop at work and then using their mobile device on their way home, and then using their tablet and on their couch to make that purchase, and then maybe walking into a store to pick it up the next day? Is very interesting. I gave you an example of the social identity that is very, very popular now, essentially allowing that social identity to really recognize that customer no matter where they touch you. But it's a problem that hasn't really been solved completely beyond that, if you will. So the key part is ensuring that whichever companies you work with, that they all kind of tie to each other, that your CRM solution talks to your loyalty solution, and your loyalty solution talks to your advocacy solution, and so on, if you will. And it's not an easy nut to crack, unfortunately. But shameless plug, that's kind of what we do here at Socialinics. So hopefully we can talk to you about it.
Wonderful. So if we have no more questions, I think that's it for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for attending. Big hand to Al for presenting. And you'll get an email later today with a recording of the webinar. So thanks so much. And if you have any questions, please email us at info@socialannex.com or visit our site, socialannex.com. Thank you.
Thank you.